when you bring an image in to Photoshop, the image on the left, the pretty young woman, and you go up to filter and down to neural filter, the box on the right appears. And that is all the capabilities in this new filter that they have, which are amazing. I mean, skin smoothing, JPEG artifact removal, style transfer. I'm not going to go through all those today, but I will go through the smart portrait, and maybe I will go through the colorize. So here they are, and you click on the little icon on Smart Portrait, and it brings up all of the filters, all the sliders that you can use on that image. And I will show just some of them. Watch what happens when you click happiness and you take it. I'll take it very far to the right. It takes a little bit of time. You see up in the upper right corner of this box, it's working. And there was an error in this filter. It's just not going to work today, is it? I'm trying again.
It is beta code, it says here.
It's not my day today. Let's start over here.
Face is somewhat replacing what's in the liquify option.
Well, in a way it is, but it's much, much better. It is phenomenal. If I can get this work, I'll show you. Because in liquify, you really are moving around the pixels that are in there. Now watch what happens when I take this piece and I can, if it would work, looks like it's working. Takes a little time. All right. I moved the happiness slider to the far right. Look, it actually built teeth in there. So the question of what, oh, if we use liquefied, no, it builds the face. Look what it did to the eyes. In fact, I can show you the before. Here's the before, and here's after. See the differences? And you notice that the happiness slider has a little check mark on it. I can turn it off and turn it on that way, but I can use in addition to the happiness, and we'll see how the two work together. And I could turn one off, turn the other one on. Take a look at before and after. I'll turn off the happiness and just do, in fact, I'll bring it back down.
John, are you able to change the way the teeth are slanted?
Say it again.
Are you able to change the way the teeth are sitting in your mouth? It looks kind of weird.
No, you can always, of course, take, watch your eyes. It's working. She's looking up to the right. If I move it to the left, of course, she will gaze to the left. And depending on how much of the slider you move, determines how much effect on the image. And before, after, and you notice I still have the happiness and surprise sliders in there. If I turn off one of those, come on down and do some of the other things. Also the light direction. I want the light to come in from the right and move that over. It's working. So you notice that it has somewhat of a shadow on the left side of the face and brighter on the right side of the face. The original, and now with those changes, but I'll bring the light back.
John, can you address her left eyebrow, which is broken?
Now you'd have to do that afterwards. You can't come in and make changes on the face. You can, the only thing you can do is use these sliders to change things. You can't go in on, while this feature is working, it's doing what it does. Then you can, once you say, okay, you can take it back into Photoshop. Now do you
Yes.
see
Yes.
Photoshop? Okay. So open the black and white image. And when it did it, it puts the blue square or rectangle around the face that it finds in the image. And I thought, wow, will it only colorize the face? I want to colorize this. So come down under you notice, by the way, it says beta, because all these features are still being developed in a number of ways. They're good, but you can, after you've used them for a while, you'll see some of the things that you think, oh, I wish they would do that a little better or faster or whatever. So I'll come down to colorize, click on that to open it. And it brings up the image and it will colorize it. It's working on it. Now it colorized. You see what it did over in the left-hand side? It actually put color in the image, which I think it did a really good job. Where the flowers and that's green, the horse's color, the facial color, so on. The other interesting thing is, if you move the sliding bar down, you have the ability to change the various colors and focus color, all those reduce the color artifacts, warm it up a little bit, changing it to the red too much. And this is, I think, where some of the beta will be done, because if I just touch that a little bit, it brings some red in. If I move it just even there, it tends to bring too much in. But in this feature, you are simply using these sliders to give you an image that once you a good job overall. Going down here, profile intensity. I have not used this other than if you want to retro red, you just click on a number of them and see what they do. I'll click on retro high contrast. You see what it did in the image? It's a little too much, but you can change the slider down some. So you play with how you want that image to look before you click OK. And once you click OK, it takes you out of the neural filter dialog box, brings you back into the image. What I want to show you related to colorizing here is I will bring in a different image, was to take this color image. Yes, come on. Take the color image. You see the color of the grass and her facial color and so on. So I took this image and I took it into Silver Effects Pro and changed it to a black and white. I wanted to see what the neural filter would do if I colorized this and then compare it to the original. The interesting is that it certainly colorizes it. You notice that it put the rectangle around the face. Come down to colorize. Here's the colorizing. It's working on it. And it colorized. And again, you can change some of the sliders to enhance the colors in a little bit different way if you want. And so I just played with it. I thought, how does it compare to the original? So I'll click OK on this. Here is the colorized version. And here's the original. Fairly close overall. Did a fairly good job. And of course, I think the original now has a little bit too much yellow in it. And this, the one that they colorized, has a better facial expression. And we might want to do a little bit of adjustment on it to darken it a little bit in the midtones. And I think it did a very good job.
Oh,
in
that's
the
very good.
colorization.
Hey, John,
Yes.
did you mention that it won't work with grayscale? You have to change it to RGB?
Ah, good point. No, I didn't. So let's talk about that. Good one. Yes, you might be doing this, especially the day I'm having. You think, what the heck is going on? You go up to image mode, and you want to make sure that RGB color is clicked. If you have grayscale clicked, it will not colorize it. So you must have mode set to RGB color. Thank you, Bob.
Will it work in the 16-bit channel?
Yes. Now let's go back to this one. First of all, you all know what I'm about to do with this before I do anything else. Flip it horizontally so that we're looking into her face.
Looks good to me either way.
Yeah. Yeah, it does look good either way. Absolutely. In fact, related to portraits, flipping it this way, you look right into the face and you, in a sense, are analyzing the face. Flip the other way, it's more of a contemplative aspect of the portrait, looking out and sort of thinking. It really, on a portrait, really depending on how you want to show the portrait. So I'll come in here, you notice I put the rectangle around the face, and I'll click on Smart Portrait so that I have all these sliders again. The interesting thing on this one, when I played with it, was to take this surprise and if you have just one of these sliders changed, you can turn it on and turn it off to see the result of that particular slider. If you have more than one of these sliders, then down in the lower left corner, you press that, that takes you back to the original image and then shows you this one. So if I turn the surprise off, you see before, here's after. Maybe. This is not doing it for me today, is it? It's working. But the safest way, back to that, is to come down to the lower left corner, click, takes it back to the original, click it again, shows you the change. I think it's amazing of how they've actually changed the jaw structure as well as the mouth. Go back to this and put a lower teeth in there, and the eyes are adjusted, brought up, the eyebrows, all those aspects to show surprise. If I change the gaze to be to the left, you notice that slider now has a check mark on it, meaning I have that one working and the surprise working. And you see now her eyes are that way. Come down to the lower left corner, click on that, shows me the original, shows me where I am. One of the things I learned about a number of the sliders is just play with them back and forth. We want to thicken the hair. We'll take that over some and we'll see how that works on her hair. I think her hair on this portrait is really very beautiful. So I necessarily wouldn't do it on this. Just wanted to show you how really well the software works on that. I'll go back to the original and then the change. A lot of software has gone into this, very much so. Head direction. This one I think is really interesting also. So I will move it to the left.
John,
It's-
when you
it's
refer to
working.
left and right, it's the image as opposed to real life. Because that
Yes,
is,
of course.
she's
Well,
looking to her right.
to my left, it moved the head to
Yeah.
my left.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that image. When I move the slider to the left, it moved that image to my left as I'm viewing it, not the person itself.
At her left, yeah.
Yes, good one. But look what it did for the head. In order to do all of that, from the original, to that, and you notice the earring here and the side of the face and all that that had to do to keep the main line of that face, and then around through here, and the eyes. Let's take the eyes back to normal. It's working. Now notice what happened here on the hair and the eye as I went back. So that's, I think, part of the beta stuff, but overall, truly amazing. And again, you can click OK and then do some additional changes to the image after the fact. Go to a different one. Ah, yes. Let me try various aspects on this image to see how it works. It's one thing to have, this is a good-looking woman, but the others were models, really beautiful, special, beautiful women. Let's see what happens if we do some things on an average, well, I'll say an average face, and you'd see she has a little bit of a smile. And if we say, I don't want her to be that happy, let's see how it changes the face and the cheeks. You see she has a little bit of a crease in the cheeks here. So as it's working on it, just changed it slightly. Now we move the head direction. Working. There it goes. So before, after, before, after. And look what it did with the hair also. The head direction actually smoothed the hair out and changed it, which I think is because if they just tried to turn the head or whatever in the software to try to make that work, would be a little difficult that way. But let's take this and just move it this side a little bit. Then I want to show you what happens when we age. Well, we age or they age. So there's the head direction. And I'll make it younger. If you go to the left with the slider, it's younger looking. It's working. There you go. Watch the difference. Look at the hair and the eyes and the smoothness of the skin. Now we'll take it the other way. So if you want to be nasty, you take photos of your friends and you change them, you age them, and then you send it back and say, this is how you look to me. I don't know how you look to others, but this is how you look to me. So look what it did to the hair. Let's look at the original. And the eyes and the mouth. Which, see how it has worked on the mouth, which I think is really what an aging of that structure of the lips would be. Back. And look, look what happened here, which I thought was really interesting. They aged the aged the earrings in a way.
John, another question.
Yes,
Suppose that you set this face the way you want it.
yes.
Can you save the sliders that you've set? And if you bring in another image in the same proportions,
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, but let's try it.
yeah.
I'll click OK on this image. So we've aged her. And I'll bring back one of the other images. Good question. Let's try it. View this pretty girl.
Hmm.
And I go up to neural filter. No, it
No.
starts over, obviously.
It would be interesting to take a picture of somebody who is certain age when they were young and then age them and see how much they look with, with
Yes.
themselves today.
Very interesting. So I'd
I will
ask you to
try.
send those to send your youngest photo of yourself.
Happy or angry?
I want
Old.
to show, want to show you another aspect here.
John, again, maybe you could somehow suggest to Adobe that that would be a great step down the road to be able to save the
Yes.
slider.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Good idea.
John, I noticed something on my, you're just talking about suggesting Adobe. In this program under beta, I clicked on something and there's some features where you can actually provide specific
Yes,
feedback.
I'll show that
about
to
it.
you.
Yeah,
Yes, good
maybe
point.
that's a place.
Yeah, yes, good point. Let's colorize this again. And if I scroll down, no, up at the top where it's, see, I'm looking at all filters. If you click wait list, it has a number of features that they are thinking, I love this one, face to caricature. That'll be neat. So you say, oh, I want to see the pencil artwork. I'm interested. And then you can give comments back to them about what you would like to know about. Sketch a portrait, I'm interested, and so on, which I think is really neat. And look at noise reduction. I think, oh, yes, of course. Look at these features. I think the marketplace today with Topaz and some of the other software packages that have denoise and all those kind of things, that Adobe's realizing they need to catch up to keep this very active. So the wait list gives you some things that you can work on or give them some comments about those features. Show you something here. Before we do that, the reason I wanted to do this one is colorize it and then go to Smart Portrait and see what happens if we change the face, which is just the face here, just do that. So we'll head direction and we'll take it more to my right and see that it changes just that portion. It's working. It's working. Still working. See, it changed the face. Now,
Yeah.
let's look at this in relation to the image itself. It worked, but it's sort of pushed off to the side. So you would have to do something after the fact. I think there's some issues related yet when you have just the face as part of it, of the image, and how that would react, or which sliders you would use. You could put the surprise slider and it's not moving the face in any way. It's just changing the structure of that face some. So let's see what happens with that.
Is the user able to select what he wants, he or she wants in the photo?
I'm not sure what the question is. What do you mean? You mean move that square?
Well, the face is selected now, but if you want to do something, you change the face, now you want to do something to the overall image or to the
Then you
horses.
need to click OK.
Right.
Because the image is then changed. And now you can do things with the image the way you always could. You have all the other features. You notice over in the layers palette that we have a new layer. Very important aspect of that. Underneath was the original black and white layer that I brought in. And now this is a new layer. So I can do all kinds of things to that.
I meant when you bring in the neural filter, did it concentrate on the face or did you specify that?
It puts that little rectangle around it, and
By
that's
itself.
all that it changes, other than the colorizing. And there are some other features I'll show you in a minute here.
John, does it only work when you have a single face and not multiple faces?
I don't know that. That's a good question. Don't think I have. I'll have to look into that because I don't have any doubles here.
John, on the color conversion, we talked about RGB. If you had a
Yes.
sepia and only access to sepia, what would you do?
What I would do is to do the changes on this image. I'll have to try it within this neural filter, but in regards to that, I would say, for example, on this one, let's play with this one a little bit.
Back to the question about two faces. I was doing that a little bit ago and I put a box around my aunt, put a box around my uncle, and I could select which box I wanted.
I see. Ah, good one. All right, thank you.
Hey, John, the other thing is the sepia, they turn it into black and white and then colorize it.
But it doesn't, in some of the software I've used, the sepia converts to color better, believe it or not. When I went to black and white, maybe there was something I
Well,
was,
we're going to try that. I want to do a change on this first, then we'll sepia tone it, and then we'll play with it. But first I wanted to put, there's a surprise. So here's before and after. I want her to be surprised when we change her. There we go. And I could come over to hue saturation. I'll do it that way. And get sepia. And I have it pretty much set to where I like the sepia, so it's not as orange. And just darken this just a little bit. And you notice down in the layers palette, we have layer 0. Let me turn these off. Here's the sepia. Here's the original image. And when you come back out of the neural filter, here is the change. But I'll turn off the original and you'll notice that the change is pieces of the image with that which matches up with the original. So that it's not actually changing the original image, it's actually creating another layer with aspects that make the change and then the two put together. Now you can merge those if you want or not. And if I put the sepia on this, like, let's do this. I will assume that we will start from this level of an image. And let's do the neural filter. And I'll show you something related to a dog. I mean, the female, I mean, true animal dog. So we have a sepia, and let's colorize it, see what happens. It's working on it. Actually, did a very good job. Look what it did with the skin tones and the hair and the background. And again, you can come down to these sliders and do various things with the sliders.
This is just not right.
In what way?
Oh,
It's done with mirrors, Lynn.
That colorization was done really well. Look at that
Oh.
from,
that's what I noticed too, when you go from a sepia versus a black and white.
yes, boy, that's done
It
very
it
nice.
added things that I just thought were great, like this did.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. All right, let me show you something else.
so all we have to do is make sure we have good composition.
Good, well, in all of our photography, composition is the number one first step, and it's the number one thing you should learn related to creating images, not just shooting them. Composition is major, and it is that aspect of your composition that brings the viewer's eye into where you want them to go. And I'm showing faces because primarily the neural filter operating on those, but you could have it as part of an image. I'll show that to you. But before we do that, let me bring up the little dog here. And I thought, okay, let's play with the neural filter with the dog. Well, as you can see, it did not put a square a rectangle around the dog's face. It doesn't, right? Well, let me do it this way. See, I can't even click on because there isn't any rectangle around anything. So I can't do anything with that. And I then came down to this one and did the depth, and it actually works on the depth. And one way to do that is you put a mark where you want to start the depth of field. So I'll put it right on the tip of the node, and you can do multiples. And then I will, you see I have high, and I can do low and medium. I'll stay with high. And it's working. It's still working. Come on. So one of the aspects of using this kind of capability on images for depth is that you may decide to photograph sharply and then do the blur aspect so that you have the best pixels that you can get, and then you can blur things the way you want to blur them. So on this one, not much change. Change it to low. Of course, there are other ways to blur in Photoshop other than using these features or these sliders. I just wanted to show you what you can do with some of these. I'll have to do some more of this one for you because
John?
this is what I want to show you. Think about this.
Hey, John?
It's not stable. Yes.
John?
Are you there?
Yeah. Did you mention that you have to click on the image inside the filter and not
Yes.
the main?
Say that again?
Yeah, John, your audio is a little messed up.
Say
have-
it again.
You have to click on the image inside the filter and not the main image. Or
Oh, I see. Yes, got it. Well, we'll come back to that.
What do you mean, Bud?
Let me show it to you. Let me bring that up again.
I thought he clicked on the dog's nose.
If I click on the nose, Bud, isn't that where I put it?
It moved to the forehead.
Yes, John, what I was saying is you can't put it on the nose in the main picture. You have to do it inside the filter square box.
Up at the top.
If you try to click it on the nose on the main dog on the left side, it won't work.
I didn't do it over there. I did it on the right-hand side.
No, I was just mentioning that for everybody else.
Yes, you're not working on this. Always you are working within the neural filter box of things so that you are always working here and you do adjustments based on this portion. Now that's working related to the head. Still working.
This is what you did last.
Well, I put the,
That's
I
what
put
you did
the
before.
spot up at the top of the head where before I had it on the nose. And it will adjust where the blur goes based on where you place that. I think,
Ah,
yeah, see, if I have it on the nose, it then does the blur from the nose back or forward, depending on high and medium. It's not as functional as what I think it will be yet. And it's, as you see, it's still in beta, but that's the blur. But I think right now, doing blur within Photoshop itself, rather than trying to use this capability in the neural filter. I just think going back to the faces is the way primarily to work on this right now with the level of.
John, you don't have a real deep image. I think if you had a person standing in a tree,
Oh,
grass
yes,
10, 20
yes,
feet
of
behind
course,
them,
yeah.
that would really show it up.
Yeah, well, I was trying to push it to its limit so that I could see what it was doing and how well it was doing it. That's a better way. Certainly we'll have some things that'll work as they've put it out, but I want to see how sophisticated could some of these things really get to be. I want to show you another aspect. This young gal, I think, okay, yes, well, she has such an expression in her face. It's just amazing. And what will the neural filter do with some of the features here? Look at look at her mouth. She's surprised. She has all those aspects. So what happens if I take this and add a little bit more surprise to her? How much more can it do? So let's take a look. It's working. Still working. There. Now, before and after. And I like the before rather than the after.
Yeah.
But that surprise. So surprise. But let's take anger. Let's see what happens with anger, because she's such a happy young gal. So what do we do with anger on this face? And I'm really doing it only because, not because I would change this face. She's such a cute little gal, but to see what it does with the facial structures. See on this one, let's look at this. It needed to change this structure here and here in order to have that. So it did. It sort of rounded that off some, changed it, changed the mouth structure, the little coloring in there, and the eyes. See how it brought the eyebrows down? Because anger. Very interesting. Let's try facial age. Now, this young gal is not going to age much at all, but let's see what it does with her. Working. So you see the hair and the eyes a little bit. Let me show you the difference. See how bright and open and so on the eyes are now. The eyes are a little bit more so, but the hair and around in the face has changed some. And the ear,
They could add it a
it
tooth.
does the earrings. I think that's strange. Anyway, it's a fun thing to play with, and especially for taking a portrait and making it look happy and do those kind of things. I think it works really well. Yes, one more. This is a black and white, of course, but that's the way I copied it from the internet. And I wanted to see what the neural filter would do in relation to coloring. Working. I think it does a pretty good job overall. Look, it even gave some coloring down into her clothing and the lips and the hair things did really well. And of course, you can change a little bit, maybe put a little bit more red into it, just a little bit. Try a little bit of blue. So you're going to play with them. I think, see, that changes so much with the background and the tone of the face that that's not as interesting to me as warming this up a little bit. And saturation. Take the saturation up. Too much, of course. So if you have it just at a certain level, so before, after. So just play with it. That's the interesting thing to do. Just play with it.
I think it'll be neat to scan
Any other
some old
questions?
portraits I have, like of my grandparents in black and white. It'd be
Yes,
very interesting
indeed.
to do that.
Right. And colorize them. See what,
Yeah,
see
yeah.
what they look like colorized.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think that was all. Let's take this beautiful young woman here. Let's age her. Let's see how she looks as she ages. And then I'll play a video for you. I think it's the one maybe that Bud played the other night. Let's play this a little bit. And let's age her a lot. Working. Still working. Still working. Still working. How's that? Here's
Oh.
before. Here's after.
Wow.
I think that worked really well.
I think
See
that's
the
realistic.
forehead,
Very realistic.
around the eyes, the hair, the mouth, the chin structure here. That's really well done. Amazing what some of these sliders are, depending on the original image, of course. As with any part of Photoshop, it depends on the image that you have to begin with. So let me play for you. Stop to share. Share again. All right, can you see my video? Can you see the video?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll play this for you.
Neural filters inside of Photoshop 2021 that have just been released. Let's take a deep dive into those right now. Hey Cafe crew, it's Colin Smith here from Photoshop. And we're going to take a look at Adobe AI, or Adobe Sensei, which is actually the name of their AI. And we're going to look at these neural filters. Now, they've been around for a little while. You guys might have seen neural filters from Google and different places like that with H progression. Photoshop Cafe. Consider hitting that subscribe button, and you're going to get a new video from me every single week. Why don't we start with what everybody's looking at, and that's just doing a basic H progression. Let's do that right now on myself. So we're going to choose filter, and then we're going to go down to the neural filters. We'll do this pretty quickly so we can spend a little bit of time looking at some of the other options. So you'll see on here we've got featured and beta. If you click on beta, Smart Portrait is the one where we're doing this aging. So we're going to turn on Smart Portrait. And then what it's going to do is it's actually going to send it up to the cloud, analyze the image, and send it back. So we're just going to go straight down to facial age. We're going to turn this on, and let me just pull this down a little bit so we can see that a little bit better. And why don't we just go ahead and painfully, let's make myself old. Okay, so this is what I'm going to look like when I'm 100. I can see, it's kind of worked quite well with some of the areas here, adding the wrinkles in the foreheads, different things like that. This line down one side of the mouth is a little odd, but okay, we get the general idea. And why don't we go the other way and let's make me super young. And there we go. Notice once you've applied it once, you can change these settings very, very quickly because now it's already analyzed the image. So if you wanted to go, to your regular photo and maybe just age it a couple of years or take off a couple of years, that might be something that's a little bit more practical that you might want to do. Now, when you are, obviously I've got a hat on here, so you're not going to see it too much, but hair thickness is something that you would use if you wanted to change that progression. So if you wanted to make someone look older, push it up a little bit. Give it a second, and then you might bring the hair back a little bit and thin it. Of course, I have a hat on, so it's not going to show it very well. Now, let me show you something that's interesting. We can change the head direction. Let me just reset that to, or just turn that off, actually, just to go to the regular picture. And let's move the head a little bit to the left. And notice how the head can change. We can move it to the right. And you might find that the hat doesn't quite line up. In fact, let's go very hard here, because notice the face is changing, but the hat isn't, and it creates this little bit of a gap. So we have this option here, placement. And this is what placement will enable us to do. Let's move this over. We want to go the other way. And notice how you can do that. You can use it to line up with different objects. Here's another fun thing is gaze. Watch this. Let's reset the head direction and let's look at gaze. Watch the eyes. Move the eyes over. So now I'm looking at this phone. So this is actually something that I think could be useful, is using this gaze when we're doing compositing and things like that. And you want to kind of, do different things. Let's move the eyes the other way. So that seems to work quite well. So some of this I think is just going to be pure fun, and some of it is going to be useful when it comes to, actual, adding a little bit of mood, but I think the key is going to be working subtly. Let's look at the light direction. This is kind of interesting, and this is definitely something that could come in useful for compositing. So let's move to the left and watch what happens on the face with the light. See how we've got that light, almost like a portrait light you would see on a mobile phone. And if you wanted to have the light coming a little bit from the other direction, let's move that over. And notice how it illuminates the other side. Now this is something I definitely could see myself using. You just got to be a little bit careful with it. But sometimes when you put a face in and the light's not quite matching the rest of the image, this is where this could come in use, is using that. And of course, you guys have already seen the happiness, I'm sure. Let's make me really happy. Of course, lips are sealed, so, well, look at that. Now I have teeth. I get random teeth. And here's another thing that's interesting, too, is let's turn off the unique details. And let's turn that on and off so you guys can see that. So if I turn that off, it makes you look a little bit more generic. And if you turn this on, it actually makes you look a little bit more like that person. Okay, let's bring that back just a little bit. So here we go. So if we go from there to maybe the other way, not quite so happy. See, when we're going a little more subtle, it definitely is believable. So there's a point there where you just push it so hard, it just goes kind of crazy. And of course we can do surprise. Let's add a little bit of surprise in there, but a happy surprise. Let's make that more happy. Now if you have a photo that already shows the teeth, it's obviously going to choose the teeth. Otherwise it's just going to make up teeth. So we can, we could do a happy surprise there. And we're definitely not going to be angry, we're going to be super chill. So see what I'm doing is I'm combining these. So why don't we've got a couple of pictures of women here. So we've got this one here, she's got some heavy eye makeup around the edges. And this woman here doesn't have so much eye makeup. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the makeup from one image and apply it to the other. So let's see how that works. Let's go to our neural filters. And let's go down to our makeup transfer, and we're going to turn that on. So right now, the image that we're applying it to is here, and we can see there's our bounding box there. It's found the face. That's what that box means, that this is the face. And then we're going to use another image. Now, we can navigate to an image, but one of the nice things that images that are open or have recently been opened are going to be available in here. So why don't we grab this one here, and that's the other image that we looked at before with the darker eyes, and let's turn that on. And we can see on the left side it's working really well. Right side's working pretty good, but there's a little bit of a line in there, where it's not quite working perfectly. So, these are beta, so there's still some work to do in these. All right, so we can see, it's okay, but I could go and I could fix that definitely pretty easily using a clone stamp or something like that. So if we want to look at this before and after, there's our before, and there's our after. It's done the lips, it's done the eyes, eyebrows. And then there's other ones under here that are not enabled. We can see these photo restoration, dust and scratches, photo to sketch, sketch to portrait. To be honest, I'm not so much excited about some of these, the face to caricature could be fun. For me, I like some of these things like photo restoration or noise reduction. Some of the practical things are where I find AI is super useful. Now, if this is something that you're interested in, click on I'm interested and then submit that to Adobe, because you're basically voting. And if we get enough people to vote for some of these features, there's more of a chance that Adobe's going to develop those or give them priority over the other ones. Okay, so here we are inside of our beta labs. Let's go to the ones that are actually they're using right now. Let's go back to, let's cancel this out. We'll go back to myself. Here I am. And let's look at the ones that are actually shipping. So we've got skin smoothing and style transfer. So let's turn on the skin smoothing. And you can see it looks very much like what you would get with frequency separation. Okay, so you can definitely play around with these. So right now I'm just doing some skin smoothing and notice, how much better it looks. If it feels like it's a little too much, here's a trick. For output, we've got different options here. We're going to keep it on new layer and then click OK to apply it. And now it's going to drop it onto a new layer. And see, there's the face. There's where it smoothened it. So if you want to blend it in with the original, just take the opacity down and just kind of blend it in. And so right now I'm just applying it at 56%, and I think I'm getting a better result. You could also create a layer mask and just paint it into the areas that you want. So if we look at this before and after, I think that's a much more flattering image, and it still looks like me. Okay, let's have a look at this image and see if we can create a little bit of atmosphere or a little bit of haze in the background without making any selections. So let's go to the filter. We're going to choose our neural filters. And this time we're going to use depth aware haze. Let's turn that on and see how that looks. See what that's doing? It's creating a little bit of haze in the background. Now we can change the warmth of this. Let's turn that on. And if we want to make it cooler, pull it to the left. And if you want to make it warmer, pull it to the right. And we can adjust the amount of haze if we want a little bit less haze. So if we're just looking at this before and after, you can see, well, let's go into here. We're going to choose filter, and we're going to choose the neural filters. And there's a whole series of artistic ones called style transfer. And if we turn these on, if you want to see more, click on show more. And these show different styles of artwork that can be applied in a single click. So if we click there, it's going to apply that style of artwork to that photograph. Okay, and I'll leave it to you to decide if you like those or not. Personally, I'm more of a fan of the practical use of the AI than I am in the creating the art, because to me the art looks a little, just to me it looks a little artificial. Okay, so there was a look at some of the things we can do using
Okay, going to end it here for today, but let me just put together some aspects of this for you. Uh, Obviously, what he was showing, it has changed. What I was showing you was the latest neural filter dialog box. So some of that has changed, and they will keep doing that. But what you can see, especially on some of these things that you just saw on that thing, this latest video, was how Adobe is trying to be competitive with some of these other packages that are out there, especially Topaz Labs Studio 2 and some of the other packages. But that's great for us. That means all of these features and capabilities are going to be there for us, and they'll keep improving them. Just keep in mind that that is in beta mode pretty much yet, and make the changes you want, and then get back right into the actual Photoshop itself and do the other changes that you want. When he talked about the eyebrow on the one side of the face, and he said, well, I could go back and use the clone tool. I thought he'd go back and just use the burn tool on shadows, and it could get that thing to work that way. So a number of ways of doing things on an image. And I just think this is a great feature that's being added to Photoshop, along with sky replacement. I think that is amazing what they've done with that, and that was to keep competitive with Luminar, because Luminar is doing such good things with skies and light rays and things like that. It's all to our advantage. So go play a little bit, see what you can do. Any questions on anything? If not, I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
John.
Thank you so
John.
much.
This is great.
Bye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Hey, John, thank you.
Take care.
Thank you so much, John. Great job.